did my best to notice when the call came down the line, up to the platform of surrender. I was bought, but I was kind. Sometimes I get nervous when I see an open door. Close your eyes, clear your heart. Gotta cut the cord. Are we human? Or are we dancer? A sign is vital. My hands are cold, and I'm on my knees looking for the answer. Are we human? Are we dancer? Pay my respects to grace and virtue. Send my condolences to good. Give my regards to soul and romance. They always did the best they could. So long to devotion. You taught me everything I know. Wave goodbye, wish me well. You gotta let me go. Are we human? Or are we dancer? A sign is vital. My hands are cold, and I'm on my knees looking for the answer. Are we human? Or are we dancer? Used to still be alright. We dream of home tonight. There's no message we're receiving. Let me know your heart's still beating. Are we human? Or are we dancer? The sign is vital. My hands are cold, and I'm on my knees looking for the answer. Are we human? Or are we dancer? Are we human? Or are we dancer? The sign is vital. My hands are cold, and I'm on my knees looking for the answer. Are we human? Or are we dancer?
All right. Thank you, Fred. Thank you guys for coming along. Welcome, welcome. It is a little after 5 on Sunday night. That means it's time for Collective's liturgy. I am Ben. I'll be your guide for the service tonight. Liturgy means the work of the people. That means it's not me preaching. It's us and you all. We're working at our faith and spiritual community together. You can sign up for the weekly at wearecollectivechurch.com. And you need to get to that link and sign up for that email. That's where you can connect to the full life of what we've got going on in the congregation. I had a super good meeting this week with our friend Sarah, the yogi, and we are scheming what it's going to be like here back in the space. We kind of are tucked into the corner tonight. We had some construction going on at my house, so we couldn't film there. And we are super excited for the way that yoga is going to come back in the room. Starting, I believe, the day after Easter, April 5th. Sarah will be here. There is going to be a way that we'll be able to stream also live at 6 p.m., our usual yoga time, so that if you are still not vaccinated, if you're not comfortable for whatever reason you can't get here, maybe you're practicing in another state or another country, but you want to practice yoga, you can tune in. You'll be able to Zoom with Sarah. She's going to be Zooming actually from the Collective page now. So when we do start, it won't come from the Road Ohm page anymore. Finally, it's going to come through our platform. Fantastic. So that's exciting. And more than just Monday yoga. Sarah is, what will we call it? A sister from another mister. She's our people, and she's got really creative stuff. She's got great ideas and great energy, and so we're going to do really, really good work with her. But if you've been missing it, if you've just been missing like embodied things, embodied spirituality in the last year especially, I know that I am so excited to get back to a weekly yoga practice through Collective. I know people have been able to maintain a bunch of that. I haven't been good about it. I'm excited to get back into it. So work of the people. This week you have an opportunity to participate in a survey for 3 more days, right, Kenny?
Yeah.
So we sent out a doodle poll with the weekly email this week called the Rundown. That kind of gave you what was coming up. It included a doodle poll, so if you want to be, and I think we've narrowed it down to Wednesday evening, but what we're seeing on the doodle poll so far is that it seems to work best for people between like 7 and 8, is that right? Yeah. 7 and 8 on Wednesday evening. So if that doesn't represent you, make sure you get on the doodle poll and you cast your vote. We'd love for you to be involved. Currently, we're just going to be offering this one work of the people group for now. If there's a bunch of interest in another time, perhaps we could do it at another time. It would probably be equally valuable. So that's what we've got going on if you want to participate in that. Also, if you want to find out more about what work of the people is, it's kind of a sermon crowdsourcing and where we plan these services, liturgies. So you can participate in that week to week. All right, Collective Cares. What's going on with Collective Cares, Kenny?
So we're doing a movie night this week. Dan actually posted in the chat a little bit earlier. We're going to be watching the movie Booksmart together.
Okay.
Here at the Drika. We're not going to be doing a Zoom because of copyright issues.
Yeah.
There's a Facebook event posted, so if you want to RSVP, I would do that just so we can get some good numbers to get a sense of who's coming to enjoy the movie together.
Yeah. Cool, awesome. So if you're interested in participating in that kind of thing in general, awesome. If you wonder how it is that you can participate in a Christian church and also be supportive of the LGBTQ plus community, come watch a movie, have a conversation, make some friends. We think that's a great place to start. So Collective Cares, you should meet Dan. He'll kind of be your host and your guide, and he represents us well. So that's what's going on with Collective Cares. Faith. So Faith has some interesting stuff going on. Faith is the organization that we do community organizing through. We're particularly involved in affordable housing during this campaign cycle, but we've also been carrying forward a bunch of stuff on youth criminalization. If you're on social media and you're a buddy with Sheriff Chitwood, you may have noticed that he has come at Faith pretty hard today. He's attacked us pretty openly, and I don't think we need to say a bunch more about that right now, other than this. I was talking to Fred earlier today. My response was this, and I hope that this is a wise response, because I know that there are those of us who are feeling reactive. We've put so much work into advocating for people that don't have a voice, advocating for people who are being knowingly or unknowingly abused by a system, and so to be attacked like this is tough. I hope that there's wisdom just in this observation, that the prophetic voice is always being discredited by those in power. And the closer we get to telling the truth about what's going on, the louder those discrediting voices get. And so wherever you land on the issue, whatever you think about what's going on, I would encourage you, because I know about the integrity of the people who do this. I know about the integrity of the organization. What we've done is based on the data we have. It's based on the best data we have. And so if there is a conversation to be had, and that's what we've been asking for, it's about the data. We're not really trying to say anything else. And I would just say, let's be wise and acknowledge that being attacked out of nowhere likely has more to do with the fact that we're getting close to a nerve than it does with the integrity of our organizing. That's how I feel right now, and I hope that we can move past this. You know, we're excited about the action coming up in a couple weeks. So, man, when we first met, right, we went out to lunch, and we, what was it? We were talking about just the amount of injustice in the world, and being in the justice business, and business is booming, but it's not easy. It was not ever going to be easy. So we're not surprised by this. We're not back on our heels. You know, it's not enjoyable when this happens, but we're in this for the people that don't have a voice. We're not in this for the politics, and so we're going to basically push through and continue to say this is the best data we have. This is acceptable. This is not acceptable. So if you want to be a part of a prophetic voice. And guys, this is exclusively what we're going to talk about in the sermon next week. How do we love God in heart, mind, soul? And the last one next week, strength. And I'm not talking about you need to get to the gym individually, but strength like people power. And that's Faith's entire model for community organizing. So if you want to be a part of that, if you want to participate in a prophetic voice in our local community, the action is coming up not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow. And you can be there. You can lend your voice to holding our representatives accountable for justice in our county. I really hope that you'll consider it. Soapbox dismounted. Whether you're with us now live or later on, whenever, wherever, your presence makes us who we are. Welcome. Now check out the community statement.
Watercast froze 10 seconds.
Well, we're grinning.
We value highly the metaphor of journey.
We're different people from different places and backgrounds.
Representing a multi-generational community, and we travel different paths.
So we agree not to make assumptions about the person across from us.
Next to us.
Or in conversation with us.
We challenge ourselves to be sensitive.
Knowing this community includes a diverse group of people
From lifelong followers of Jesus
To people who are just now open to the idea that God might exist.
We strive to avoid offense.
Ask good questions.
articulate and explain our responses.
We don't assume fluency in the Bible,
Spirituality or church language.
Because we believe the message of Jesus is not for Christianity, but for humanity.
So we do everything in the spirit of love and grace.
We do everything in the spirit of love and grace.
In a spirit of love and grace.
Everything in the spirit of love
and grace.
So we do everything in the spirit of love and grace.
All right, so what we're going to do is as we kind of transition into a little bit more of our consideration, our meditation and reflection, we're going to get ready to sit silently and kind of ease into it. So we start by sitting a little bit more upright in your chair. If you can get your feet on the floor and get your back straight so that you can get a full breath into your diaphragm. Just trying to let go of some of the anxiety, whether that's stuff you brought into the weekend from last week, whether that's anxiety in anticipation of what's coming. Take a couple cleansing breaths. And I'm going to give you some words tonight to consider, and then we're going to give you these images, this awesome drone footage. And I want to ask you to focus sort of on one phrase here. These should be familiar words. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters and restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of rightness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table for me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all of the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. As we hover with this perspective and the drone footage over this water, hear these words again. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. Still waters and a restored soul. Let's sit silently together for a few minutes. Use whatever is helpful as you meditate, the drone footage, the music, neither, open eyes, closed eyes, however it is that you reach peace, find centeredness, harmony. Let's sit together for about 3 minutes. Fickle my heart and how woozy my eyes. I struggle to find any truth in your lies. And now my heart stumbles on things I don't know. My weakness I feel I must finally show. So lend me your fear and I'll conquer them all. But lend me your heart and I'll just let you fall. Lend me your eyes, I can change what you see. But your soul you must keep totally free. Har, 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 har. Awake my soul. Awake my soul. Awake fickle my heart and how woozy my eyes. I struggle to find any truth in your lies. And now my heart stumbles on things I don't know. But my weakness I feel I must finally show. Har, 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 har. In these bodies we will live, in these bodies we will die. Where you invest your love, you invest your life. In these bodies we will live, in these bodies we will die. Where you invest your love, you invest your life. Fun stuff. I cannot wait until we can get back together. We can put some versions of the band back together, crank it up in this room, get your voices. Brandon's hands are raised. He's bringing the trumpet. All right. Where are we? We've got, Mark chapter 8. Okay, so let me give you this, and then I'm going to give you a little intro, and then Kenny's going to read for us. So Jesus, let me rewind. This is a Christian church, if you're not familiar. So the Bible, and then the new part of the Bible with Jesus, this is the story of his life according to the Gospel of Mark. He's started his ministry. He's hanging out with people. He's healing people. He's gathered a following. So it says, then he called the crowd to him along with his disciples and said, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. Here's the crux of our question tonight. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? Jesus is coming after capitalism right here in the Bible. My goodness. He's saying it's not transactional. You can't exchange something for the soul, then you can't buy the soul. How do we get it? If anyone is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes for his Father's glory with the holy angels. I haven't spent a ton of time studying that passage. Sorry about all that shame stuff at the end. I don't know that we needed that. But the soul, what good is it for us to gain the whole world and forfeit our soul? So tonight's sermon is brought to you by the tension between Disney's new movie Soul and the documentary The Social Dilemma. The tension between these two. So the theme of the documentary is essentially this. That with social media, we have, in many ways, gained the whole world, but that we're losing our soul as a people, that we've gained infinite knowledge, infinite connection, but that we're losing our soul. Once we open, once we reopen after Easter, we're going to screen that movie, and It's popular to say we're going to screen that and have a discussion, right? We're going to have a conversation. We're going to screen that movie and then we're going to take a hard look at ourselves. This is what we're going to do. So if that doesn't sound fun, maybe don't plan on coming. So I was asking several weeks ago, and I don't think I've ever done this. I've seen Jimmy Kimmel do this a few times. I don't know if this is going to set off the devices in your houses, but I'm going to be talking about the one that belongs to Amazon here in a second. So you may want to mute yours. I'm going to give you about 5 seconds to do that. It rhymes with Alexa. I was trying to ask the other night, this is a few weeks ago when the movie Soul came out. I was trying to ask Alexa if that new movie Soul was on demand, like for streaming. So I was asking if Alexa had Soul. And somehow in my asking, the response I got was, people have their own views on religion. Hey Alexa, have you got Soul? People have their own views on religion. I was like, man, this thing is pretty conscious. I don't know if it's AI, but she's conscious. She's really, she's threading the PC line. She went on to tell me that as a noun, it could mean the practice or the principle of life, of feeling, of thought, and of action. And then I was intrigued. So I said, Alexa, how do you save a soul? And she said, I found this online, music. And I was like, that could be it. Maybe music will save our soul. So if you ask Alexa or Siri, pretty quickly they're going to take you to the internet, and almost immediately they're going to send you to Wikipedia. But if I were to ask you, guys, what would you say? And rather than, and I was trying to get around like this, what's the definition of soul? So instead I want to ask, what's the word soul trying to name? What is that word trying to name for us? What is the word soul trying to name in the text where Jesus is talking about gaining the world but losing your soul? And for us, what's the word soul trying to name? And part of the sermon is the acknowledgement that we won't all use the same language because we don't all have the same context. We can't understand and experience soul the same way because we're different people. Or maybe we find ourselves sort of at this point in our spirituality at a loss for words. Like, I don't know enough to even say anything about soul. Or maybe, and this is maybe more some of us, maybe you do have, and maybe you don't even know that you've got it, but it's tucked away. Maybe you've got a working definition of soul tucked away somewhere. But then when you hear yourself say it for the first time in a while, you catch yourself going, is that really what I think the soul is? Is that really soul, or is that something my parents told me, or like a church told me, or a book told me? Is that really soul? And I want us to take a few minutes, and you guys, Kenny people have been super engaged on the chat, so I want to invite them to share. Oh, Brooksy's in. Hey, Dan. Oh man, the whole crew. We got a bunch of folks. So what I want to do is get some working hot takes, and I think this is something we're going to do coming up at the Work of the People meetings, is create what we call working hot takes. So that can be like what we say, what we're asking, what do we mean when we say soul? What's your current definition, the current idea, the current expression, the current metaphor for you in a shareable way, that if somebody asked you, you could communicate it? And I'm going to give you an awesome example in just a second, but I want you guys to try first. What do you mean when you mean soul? What do you mean when you mean soul? And we're going to keep an eye on the chat, and we're going to share back what you guys are saying. So any gut reactions from you guys? Heather's also here, just off screen. Brandon, we're opening the floor. What do we mean when we mean soul? And I'll go first. I like the idea of I've been thinking about it. Oddly enough, it's like when do you get caught needing a sermon but unprepared, right? That's like a fear preachers have, but yeah, that was a smooth transition. I have some thoughts on this. Any soul?
I think immediately of Aretha Franklin.
Aretha Franklin.
That's what Dan said, right?
Oh yeah, Dan Hensley. We had to steal it. Where are you, Dan Hensley?
I didn't steal that. I was just kidding. I think of the concept of self.
Ooh. Okay, so now we've got a conversation going, because online we have Andrew Brooks saying awareness, and right here Freddie is saying a conception of self.
Yeah.
Okay. Somewhere between conception of self and awareness, I would say we're talking then maybe about consciousness. or it touches consciousness. Heather's giving us, you take it or leave it. Consciousness, maybe consciousness.
When I was in college, I worked in the sex and art department, and my boss, I remember talking about like people having souls, and she's like, no, we are souls.
Oh yeah, okay, so that's actually a really good transition. So keep dropping your hot takes. Oh, here's Dottie. Self in connection to all else. Yeah, I like that. Maybe that's like the peak. Like when you get there, that's the enlightenment, is the connection to all else. But that's also like the mechanism. The soul is the thing that does the connecting. Yeah, Dottie, thank you. The force of creation. Soul is the essence of who you are. Identity. Man, all right. They say you can't have church online. Careful. So. Awesome. This is really good. Force of creation. Anybody else? What do we think? What do you mean when you mean soul? And these are all really good. Awareness, self in connection to all else, identity, soul is the essence of who you are, the force of creation. Oh, Andrew Addison, self-esteem. Man, there's a connection between self-esteem and Aretha Franklin. You better bet there is. So there's Dan Hensley with that. Wow. Okay. So soul, actually, I'm thinking about Eugene from the legendary JCs on past Easters and past Sunday soul brunches. Yeah, there is something about soul, and that's solid. Really spirit and physical self.
What Caroline Wilson had to say.
Oh yeah.
The truest self, apart from what others think of you, also apart from what even you think of you.
Oh man. The barest truest self, apart from what others think of you, also apart from what even you think of you. Bill Brennan here, soul is the deepest heart, the seat of our creativity, the connection to the ecosystem, one with God. We need to grow in awareness of it. Joining spirit and physical from Brandon. Spirituality between mind and heart that connects us. Integrity in the context of Scripture. Wow. I might not need to write sermons anymore. Okay, so let's say this, and we can keep this going because this is awesome. We should save this thread because we'll want to come back to it. There are clearly, can we agree on this? There are clearly some similarities, and also, obviously, any kind of singular naming of soul is problematic, right? So we can see, it's almost like seeing a pattern. We see these similarities, right? Constellations kind of within our definition of soul, and trying to come to a singular understanding is going to be really problematic. But we're on this journey. We've been exploring this Hebrew prayer called the Shema from Deuteronomy chapter 6. Jesus is asked what's most important. And rather than coming up with his own new brand, he quotes this old Hebrew prayer. He says, listen so that you might learn to love God with integrity of heart, with mind, with soul, and with your strength, with all your might, which we're going to get to next week. Tonight we're orbiting soul. And so I'm going to take a breath. That was super great, kind of getting us into the frame of mind for a quick sermon, and actually a really cool conversation I'm excited for you guys to see. But I'm going to ask Kenny to read this poem real quick, and then I'm going to chat with you guys online for a second while he does it. So Kenny, give it to us.
This is Love by Cisla Miloš. Did I say that right?
Yeah. Cisla Miloš, yeah.
Love means to learn to look at yourself the way one looks at distant things, for you are only one thing among many, and whoever sees that way heals his heart. Without knowing it from various ills, a bird in a tree say to him, friend. Then he wants to use himself and things so that they stand in the glow of ripeness. Doesn't matter whether he knows what he serves. Who serves best doesn't always understand.
A bird and a tree say to him, friend. So there's this question in Wesleyan theology. John Wesley is one of the founders of United Methodism, and Collective is sort of like a missional community, a church under the Methodist umbrella. So John Wesley was really fond of this question in his spiritual practice groups. He would ask, how is it with your soul? And And I really like that. I really like that for me, at least, as sort of a litmus test about how my soul is. Do a bird and a tree say to me, friend? And if I'm at a point in my life where I can't think, a bird and a tree would say to me, friend, maybe I need to examine myself. Is my desire for myself and things that they would stand in the glow of ripeness? I mean, some of this language is just so, it's important for soul, right? Because we don't have science. We have poetry. We have this language that touches this thing that we can't touch, that we can't prod, we can't throw this thing under a microscope. So we're in the gravity of soul. We can't see it, but we feel it. It has an effect on us. In the same way Aretha Franklin has an effect on us. It tethers us. Soul seems to tether us to something. That's helpful, right? For your spirituality and your theological perspective. Maybe soul tethers us to something. Welcome to Collective Church, where we're really nailing things down. What we're saying, though, is this begins with the human universal question of understanding personhood. What is it to be a person? It shows up in every culture, every religion, every people, every area of the world. Who am I? How did I get here? What's the point of this? What is my purpose? What am I to do with this life that I have? And then there's the trip of consciousness. What is the me that I can even ask, what's the point of me? That's relatively new. This is, I would say, for anyone who's ever had any misgivings about religion, this is the pursuit of the soul, apart from a religious structure. Who am I? Why am I here? What's the point? Do I fit in something bigger? I think that's the pursuit of the soul. And I want to spoil sort of the evening tonight. In case you have too much confidence in me or in Collective, we will not solve this question tonight. We're not going to solve the puzzle about which humanity's been puzzling for millennia, but we're going to enter that conversation. Because what we've learned around here is that it's in these conversations that things like soul get revealed. It's not in a didactic teaching where I put a PowerPoint slide up and go, hey, the 3 bullet points you need to know about soul. No, it's in hearing stories where whatever the thing is we can't touch gets stirred, where soul comes alive, and then we recognize that in each other. That moves us. That makes love real for us. That moves us enough that we make these commitments like justice for neighbors we don't even know. Even though we're going to end up empty-handed and unknowing, what we do end up with is a sense of wonder about soul and about peace and about how we connect to that. So this is going to start connecting to so much of what you guys said in the chat, actually. The word for soul in Greek is translated butterfly. Which is a perfect image, right? If you think about a butterfly, and think about this like an artist, not like a scientist, a butterfly is something that's difficult to catch, difficult to hold, difficult to apprehend, but beautiful. It sort of floats around, it dances on wind, and what is wind? We also can't see it. And this is the thing, with a butterfly, it's like captivating, but it's never captured. It's real, it moves us, in many cases it transports us. Seeing a butterfly is like a transcendent experience, and the butterfly is not captured. We don't own it, we don't control it, it doesn't belong to us. Is this starting to connect maybe with soul a little bit? Like when I think about soul, especially my soul, I think about trying to pick out a butterfly in a sea of butterflies, right? Like you catch a glimpse of it for a second and then it's lost. But what it's lost in is also beautiful. It's also breathtaking. It's just so much more than me. Soul is maybe best known as this like thin slice of human existence. And what we've done is like take it out of the fullness of life and put it under a slide, under like a theological or an academic microscope. And I think the original word is much more like beauty in flight. It's not science, but poetry. In theology, we would say theopoetics, that we're not trying to nail it down, we're trying to be caught up in it. As the experience we desire, even as it reminds us that it's unnameable. So a little bit of background, and then we're going to invite you into a conversation, and then we're all going to have a conversation. So the word soul in Greek is suke, and it's preserved in English. It's where we get the word psyche. And as I was preparing, I couldn't help but feel like what an appropriate time for a conversation about what it means to love God with our psyche. As people, as a church, as a country. And it all begins with Plato. So this idea of psyche, and we'll come back to that in a second. Plato says it's the eternal element within human beings, immaterial and immortal. So he says there's something external about the human experience. He calls it the soul or the psyche, and it's not material. It's not matter. It's not substantive. It has no weight. It could not die. And so the idea arose that if the body dies, the soul does not. And I wonder how many of us, that's sort of like the working definition we kind of came up with, whether you went to youth group or not. And shout out Caroline, shouted out the movie Soul that we opened up talking about. Yeah, these are still pressing questions. The fact that Disney is printing money, writing movies about the soul, and our understanding of if and to what extent soul is connected to body, how those work on this veil between life and death. Disney's doing it. The question is, how well is the church doing it? So we grow up with this definition of the split, right? And there are different definitions, but maybe especially around funerals and loss, we return to this belief. We return to this understanding that people that we love are in a better place. And the Greek understanding holds to this idea called the transmigration of souls. So the idea is the deepest elemental reality is soul. It existed before a person, it comes into form in a person, and then the person dies and it sort of goes back out into whatever the soul ether is. This is all thanks to Plato. And again, not super clear. In Greek philosophy, it's really much more butterfly-ish, if I had to put a technical term on it. In the Greek line of thought, the body and soul are split. That's what I want you to understand, the Greek line of thinking. Different, separate, body over here, soul over here. The reason I needed to tell you all this is because it's profoundly influential in the history of Christian thought because the Christian fathers were Greek. They spoke and read Plato. They took part in these philosophical conversations that were going on at the time, and they understood Christianity through the lens of Greek philosophy, split soul from body. Jesus wasn't Greek. Jesus didn't grow up with that perspective of the world, and so whatever the good news is that Jesus has for us, it's not that perspective. So the question has to be, what was the Hebrew thought about the soul at that time? When the author of Deuteronomy writes hundreds of years before, love God with your soul, right? With your heart and mind and soul, there was no conception of this Greek split, the duality of the body and the psyche or the soul. The Hebrew word, in fact, is nephesh. And it's used in several ways. It can describe desire, it can describe passion, it can describe the origin of love, the seat of emotion. The other thing I love about it is that it has to do with memory. And this is huge. I mean, think about this. If you don't know anything about the Bible, this is a quick kind of lesson on that. Memory, massive to the Old Testament, to the Hebrew Bible, massive part of the connection between God and people. All throughout the story, God is saying to the people, remember, I'm the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. Remember, I brought you up out of Egypt. Remember, I was with you in the wilderness as a cloud by day and a fire by night. Remember, I brought you into the promised land. Remember when you were brought into exile. Remember how David, remember how Moses, remember, I mean, on and on and on. Remember. There is a sense in which memory is a part of the binding agent between God and people. And therefore, our understanding, the Hebrew understanding of soul, includes somehow memory as a part of soul, which many of you, maybe there's like lights going off and you're like, oh yeah, like the ancestors. Oh yeah, like the cloud of witnesses. Oh yeah, like the people that came before us and showed us the way and we're standing on their shoulders. Memory. I mean, come on, Aretha? When was Aretha big? 60s, 70s?
80s.
Yeah, so
decades, yeah.
All of the stuff coming out of the civil rights movement. I mean, man, memory is a big part of soul. A big part of soul. And it's true on a personal level. When I ask you, when I look at you, we sit down for coffee and I say, hey, tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself. Where do you go? What do? You tell a story, don't you? You tell a story about your history. You catch me up on the memories that make you who you are. You describe how you are a product of all of these memories put together and how those have shaped and delivered to me, this person sitting across from me at coffee. Right? Your memories have made you who you are. Memory is integral to life, and it belongs with what the Hebrews would call soul. It's a part of what connects us to God. It's a part of what connects us to each other. Our social memory. But by and large, in Hebrew, the word, the concept, is much closer to just what we would call life. Back to this idea of life force. It's what makes us alive. My Hebrew professor in seminary would say nefesh, and would always like gesture to the throat, gesture to the windpipe. And often in Hebrew, it's connected to the idea of lifeblood, which isn't a metaphor. It's literal blood. It's what courses in veins. It's what's keeping us alive. And so in the Hebrew, if you coupled the blood, the lifeblood, with the nefesh, the blood and the soul are sort of thought of as one. In Islam and sort of Abrahamic religions and the ancient Near Eastern origins, it's said that God is as close as your jugular. As close as your jugular. So when they're trying to talk about soul, it's not, and I'm not trying to diss the Greeks. I'm not trying to throw shade at the philosophers. But the Hebrews are not like soul is airy-fairy, separate from the body, woo-woo, go to somewhere else when you die. The Hebrews are like, you want to talk about soul? Let's talk about the windpipe and the jugular. I mean, do you get a sense for how seriously they take the materiality of soul? Like that, for the Hebrews, that's where soul travels, the jugular and the windpipe. There's not this dualism that you see in the Greek consciousness. Blood and life and soul and God, they're all connected. They're all put together in this Hebrew consciousness. It's not immaterial. It's not immortal. Body and soul are one. You can't split them up. One of my great Hebrew professors at Stetson, Dr. Candy Queen Sutherland, said, and I think this is similar to what Kenny said, a person doesn't have a soul, a person is a soul, that it's the all of you. It's everything. And so no surprise then that Old Testament scholars agree that for the bulk of the Hebrew Bible, people didn't believe in an afterlife, not because they intellectually rejected it, but just because it wasn't. It wasn't a thing that they were debating. It wasn't on their mind. The question wasn't even formulated yet, and they didn't think about the soul going anywhere after death. And so there wasn't a problem for them to solve. And as we head toward Easter, remember that for the Jews, this is where the idea of resurrection comes from, right? Is that what's the hope for them? If the body and soul are not separate, if things are integrated, then for the Jews, if there's going to be any kind of salvation, any kind of rescue, any kind of restoration, any kind of reintegrating what's been lost or broken, any sort of ongoing life with God, if God's good world will endure, then it had to be physical. It had to be bodily because soul and body are one. They're integrated. There wasn't this consciousness about people being separated and a part of them going somewhere else. Heart, mind, soul, strength, all together. So here's the deal. If we step back and instead of asking which one of these definitions, right? We've got Greek, we've got Hebrew, we've got a little bit of Aramaic, then we've got Disney, Pixar's Soul, then we've got the social dilemma talking about like effectively what are the things in Harry Potter that suck your soul out? The Dementors. Yeah, social media as like this new Dementor. If we step back and instead of asking which of these definitions or languages or metaphors is right, and that's what we're so shaped by our Western capitalist culture is to go, this is the way many people have thought about soul, and we immediately go, cool, which one's right? If instead of going which one's right, or if instead of asking which one do we need for our eternal salvation, instead, if we just stopped and said, what story are we telling ourselves about soul? And then what does that story do to us? Does it serve us? Does the story we tell ourselves about our soul, does it serve us? And if so, how does it serve us? And if not, why not? And then whether it's Greek, right? This is the sort of immaterial mystery and philosophy of a butterfly, whether it's Hebrew and it's sort of the materiality of soul and the role of memory and storytelling and it's all integrated. The question is not which is right. How are each of these a helpful tool for you living in touch with your soul? How does each of these things potentially help to restore your soul? To recover your soul? And what does it feel like? The restoration of soul, the recovery of soul, the revival of soul. The psalmist says, you lead me beside still waters and you revive my nefesh. The nefesh, right? The lifeblood, the spirit, where the ruah, the spirit comes in and out. You revive my nefesh. What does that revival and recovery feel like? I had a chance this morning, actually, this very morning, to sit down with our good friend Danny Carr and discuss this with her. And she's just celebrating today 7 years of sobriety. And we just talked about kind of what that experience has been like, how it's shaped her understanding of soul, and what soul means to her now. The series is called Listen. That's what we've been doing for the last 4 weeks. The Shema opens with this command, listen, so that you might learn to live with integrity. All of this that we've just gone through, this has all just been the setup. I want to invite you tonight to let Danny be your teacher and listen for the sermon in her story. And then when she gets done, we're going to wrap up with a quick Eucharist, and then we'll jump over to Zoom and chat together. Check this out. Thanks again, Danny.
Hey guys, I'm here with Danny Carr on the couch tonight, not here on the porch in DeLand, but all the way on her couch from Charlotte. Danny, super good to be with you. How you doing?
I'm good, Ben. How are you?
Good. Awesome to see your face and have you here with us again. So we're talking about soul, and sort of the sketch is what we've talked about tonight is the background is the Greek word is very dualistic. Soul and body are separate. Soul goes somewhere else after you die. The Hebrew conception is much more holistic. And soul and body are one. Soul is connected to our material existence. And then we also just said that for the Hebrew consciousness, soul is also connected to memory, which is really cool. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about today is you've just had an anniversary in recovery. And we talked about the way that Psalm 23, the language is like God restores our soul. It could also be revives our soul. It has a little bit of that recovery sense to it. And then you couple that with the Hebrew understanding that soul is really more so like life force. And then you bring memory into that as well. And I want to sort of ask this classic kind of recovery soul question and let you just share a little bit, which is, if the Hebrew conception of soul is life, how did recovery save your life? And that goes into that memory of what were things like, and then what happened with your soul, and then what are things like now? You just got done telling me that life is good. So so bring us there. I just celebrated my 4-year anniversary as well. You just did 6 or 7?
7. Today is 7.
7 today. That's so cool.
7 today.
Tell us a little bit about what restores your soul, your life.
So, I mean, if anyone who's watching is at all involved in a recovery like program or setting, One of the more cliche terms is a life second to none. And really, when I first started in the programs, I never thought that was going to happen for me. But it's real, which sounds so weird to say. So yeah, today I have 7 years. 7 years ago, this morning, I woke up in jail. And I'm smiling right now because I'm really happy that I'm here today, not that I was there.
Right.
But I don't remember going. I don't remember being arrested. None of it. And I was scared out of my mind. I had never been so scared before. And no one would tell me why I was there and all these things. And but I decided, sitting in that little room with about 6 other ladies, it was never going to happen again. Never again. And I have kept that promise to myself every single day since then. And back then I was basically a walking dead person. I didn't want to feel the few things I could feel. And then the other times I would feel absolutely nothing, just this unending numbness. And I would violently switch back and forth between not wanting to feel what I did feel because it was angry or it was painful, or wanting to feel really, really good because I felt nothing. And I was tearing apart the people that loved me. They saw me continuing to do these things, and it wasn't good for anybody at all. But so when I woke up in that room 7 years ago this morning, I decided I wasn't going to do it ever again. And I've kept that promise every single day. And now I am living in Charlotte, North Carolina. Just moved here in July from Florida. I'm close to my family. I get to see my sister and her children, and it's incredible.
So basically you had a set of, at that point, you had a set of stories that you had been telling yourself, and a set of behaviors that went with those stories. And the combination of that was pulling you apart. It was absolutely pulling you apart. Lack of integrity, contradictions, all of these combating feelings to the point where you didn't want to feel anything. And so you had your substance of choice, and that was, like you said, not even conscious, but it was how you were dealing with the pain of a disintegrated life. And one of the things I want you to talk about is, so 7 years ago this morning, you stopped doing something, and that's absolutely changed your life, but you also started doing something. What are the things you started doing?
So one of the big things for me, I'd like to put a little disclaimer here. If you are in recovery or about to get into recovery, my journey is not going to be the same for everybody. I'm not going to necessarily advise it for everyone. You have to do what is best for you here. So please don't take everything I say word for word. When I first started getting clean, I was heavy into the programs. But really, what
programs
helped
are
me
meetings
was
for those of you that don't speak the language. Yeah, programs are regular meetings, working the steps.
So I did that in the beginning, and then I realized that yes, I love those people, and yes, the meetings were super helpful in the beginning. But I had several things happen that it was no longer a good place for me. The meetings I was going to and everything, which I'm not downing them, dogging them at all. They're wonderful people. It's a wonderful, wonderful programs. But what really helped me was I had to go to a couple hospitals, more than a couple, over the past few years. And I had to have some intense therapy and different medications. And I had to learn to let people help me.
Oof. Man, I hope Heather's listening. That's been a big story across the community recently, learning to let people help me.
Just from like as long as I can remember, I was always the helper. I helped everyone else. No one could know that I was struggling. No one, because people needed me. They needed me. So I didn't want to be a burden.
Yeah.
So I had to learn and let it sink into my head that just because you need help does not make you a burden.
Yeah.
If these people are in your life, it's because they love you, and it should be, at least to some extent symbiotic, like you help them, they help you kind of thing, some cohesion there in the relationship. But
well, and
I
talk
didn't
about talk about what makes your soul feel alive is being needed by somebody that you love. I mean, getting to help somebody that you love, that's not a burden, that's a gift. To know that somebody that you love need and that you can help meet that need, that's soul work.
It really is.
Man.
It's just
super
I would
good.
say that's the big one right there. I had to learn to let people help me, and I had not even just letting people help me, I had to learn to ask for help.
Yeah.
That was the big thing, because people kept trying to help me, but if I wasn't ready to accept the help or actually go up to them and be like, hey, I need this right now. I can't do this by myself.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't figured out a way to accept that was a natural and good thing and go with it.
Man, and for some reason, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see where the sermon lands. But I feel like for some reason, my mind and heart continue to come back to the word integrity with soul, and I think it sounds so much like that's the turning point for you. And I know it's realizing that our lives are unmanageable. It's waking up in prison. It's having that bottom out where you go, this lack of integrity in who I am can't go on. Like you said, we can't do this anymore. We've got to put it back together. And I think that's soul work. And I think, again, not just you stopped using, I stopped drinking, but what the Christian tradition calls formation. It's not just that we put something down, it's that we picked up a set of practices. And like you said, a group of friends, a community, a group of drunks, however you want to call it. And that power greater than ourselves, that community, creates a safe place for us to not even necessarily like we walk in and they've got all the answers and they start going to work on our soul and fix us up, but maybe just that we walk into a room where our soul is safe. And all of a sudden we can tell our story. We can take an honest and slow look at ourselves and go, here's all the excuses I've been making for a long time. Man, what good soul work. Danny, it looks gorgeous where you are. We miss you a ton. Cannot wait to get you back down here. And next time you're in the room, have you come and share some more with us and give us an update. Congrats on the new niece.
Thank you.
That's super exciting. We will talk to you soon. Hopefully we'll see you on the Zoom in a little bit this evening. Are you working?
No, I don't work today, but we are having family dinner at 6.
That's right.
So
we'll see you soon on the Zoom live. This has been super great. Appreciate it, Danny.
All right. Bye, Ben.
Be well. Peace.
Man, thanks so much, Danny. I hope you guys all enjoyed getting to be a part of that conversation as much as I did, and just getting to watch it again. Super moving. I want to just kind of summarize before we transition here to the Eucharist that I was realizing as I was listening to Danny talk again and just sort of thinking about this whole series. It's interesting to me this time through looking at this prayer, the way that it has sort of upended my expectations of it again. And so I came into it, I think, in some sense, maybe the way that many of you did, maybe more romantic than practical, thinking like, I want to have this really moving experience of my heart. I want to have this learn something, have this sort of enlightenment of the mind, and have this, whatever the experience of the soul. And I got to last week and realized that the sermon was about changing your mind. And I was like, God, that's sort of a bait and switch there. I was thinking it was going to be like this really fun enlightenment thing. And it was really about the difficult work of changing our perspective. And then the same thing maybe this evening with with soul is I think we approach it and we go, man, I'm really going to work on my soul, or I'm going to improve my, I'm going to do a devotional or get a new book, or I'm going to start doing yoga, or I'm going to, sit and meditate or whatever. And I think what I wanted to illustrate with the interview with Danny is that I think sometimes soul work is just work. And I think like the work of recovery, of committing to a community and some practices. In a lot of ways, that's what we're doing, right? That's the same technologies. We're committing to community and we're committing to practices. But then in the same way, like we said at the beginning, to gain the whole world, but forfeit your psyche. I think maybe what's going on in this particular season, in this call to listen so that we might learn to live with integrity of soul, maybe what we learned this time around is that soul has more to do with taking care of ourselves. If that's things have gotten out of control in areas of our lives and we need to pursue recovery for certain things, probably more so even than that right now is the state of mental health in our own lives, in our congregation, in our nation. And I have to believe that that the addressing of what it means to love God with our psyche and with a whole psyche, and I say this as we're all people who have been medicated, who are medicated, who have been through therapy. Maybe it's like this, like you go, I want to do some real soul work, and in your mind, you're at your kitchen table with a cup of coffee and an awesome, devotional book, and you've got time to sit on your pillow and meditate with your Tibetan singing bowl. And maybe instead the Shema this year says, go to therapy, right? Maybe soul work is that you actually go look under the hood of your psyche for just a minute and you go, man, we've just been through a hellacious pandemic. We've just been through whatever this political cycle was. We've been through the near division of our country. Maybe what you need isn't another small group or Bible study. Maybe you need to go to therapy. Maybe it's time to look at psychiatry. Maybe, and I don't know, I'm not prescribing, I'm saying maybe soul work is a little more practical for us this time around. Let's lean into the word psyche and go, how is it with our psyche? How is it with our soul? How is it with our psyche? Right? How is it with the things in our life that we know we tend to abuse? Right? And we know them, don't we? Do you know the things you abuse? I know the things that I abuse. We probably, How are we doing in terms of abusing the things that we abuse? How are we doing in terms of our psyche? How's our mental health? Are we eating enough? Are we sleeping enough? God, we're getting close to being able to give a hug pretty regularly, we hope. We're so close. We're looking forward to this summer. Thanks again so much to Danny. Thank you guys for this conversation. As we reflect on the open table, we're going to sing a bit in just a second and consider the way we experience soul and how soul is restored, how it's revived. Where does our life force come from and how is it renewed? The table of this recovering soul is set for us tonight. As always, it's open to us and to all people, and no one will ever be turned away.
Remember me when the west wind moves upon the field of barley. You'll forget the sun and his jealous sky as we walk in fields of gold. And so she took her love for to gaze a while upon the field of barley. Arms she fell as her hair came down among the fields of gold. Will you stay with me? Will you be my love among the fields of barley? We'll forget the sun and his jealous lie as we as you kiss her mouth among the fields of gold. Never made promises lightly. There have been some that I've broken, but in the day still left walking fields of gold. Walking fields of gold. Many years have passed since those summer days among the fields of barley. See the children run as the sun goes down among the fields of gold. You'll remember me when the west wind moves upon the fields of barley. You can tell the sun in his jealous sky when we walked in fields of gold. When we walked in fields of gold. When we walked in fields of gold.
Go into the seething cauldron of the world. Listen for the questions and voices that you would rather not hear. Answer them with the energy of the Holy Spirit, the power of the one who gives us life, and the boundless love of Christ. Let's bring our hands together for our closing ritual. First, to our foreheads for clarity of thought, to our lips for clarity of speech, and to our hearts for clarity of action, so that in all that we say and do, love would be our first thought, our first word, and our first deed. Grace and peace. I'm going to tell you, the Zoom link will be live, right? It's in the chat. The Zoom link's going to be live. Man, talk about faith. I'm trusting you. We've got to immediately transition into another shoot here. So we're going to go to the Zoom meeting, but I'm going to ask you to take 7 minutes. And if you get in the Zoom and you're talking together, that's fine. I'll be there in about 7 minutes. I'm going to run home and take the call from there. Come on into the Zoom. I'll let you guys in, and then we'll take a break. Grace and peace. We'll see you next Sunday.